Mr. Reddy, thank you so much for speaking to SNI. What's your take on the technology demonstration today and how significant it is in terms of positioning India into this elite club of only three other countries?
Certainly, we have demonstrated our anti-satellite capability today, and it's only three countries have done it so far: US, Russia, and China. And since we have invested a lot of resources into our space program and our space assets, I think it is very important that we also demonstrate technologies to protect our satellites.
In terms of ballistic missile defense, can you explain to a layperson the two-tiered approach that India has chosen?
It is a two-tiered approach consisting of exoatmospheric missile system, which means this missile will engage adversary missiles within in space outside the atmosphere, and if that misses, then there will be a second tier, the endo-atmospheric missile system, which will try to engage the enemy missile within the atmosphere. So these are the two layers we have.
So this is an adaptation of the first layer.
The first layer, yes, the outside the atmosphere system.
So how would it technologically need to be adapted to function in the manner that it has?
Well, it is much difficult to go for a ballistic missile defense because we never know when the adversary is launching the missile, and the radar cross section of a missile is very small compared to a satellite. With a satellite, if we have a good surveillance mechanism, then we can understand its parameters much better, can observe it for days, and then do our own test when it is required.
Mr. Reddy, sorry, you were saying?
No, so I'm saying it is a phase in the ballistic missile defense achievement.
In terms of the information that we have of the technology demonstration of hitting this satellite, which was, of course, our own, there was talk of it taking 3 minutes to reach that satellite. So, in your estimate, what would be the area, or how high would it have gone to hit the satellite?
So the maximum altitude for these kind of tests, and given the time frame which the government has declared, it will be the maximum altitude could be around 400 kilometers.
And one of the reasons is also because you didn't want too much space debris, so that's why you've gone for this lower Earth orbit satellite to hit.
That will be a major consideration because as a responsible spacefaring country, it is not in our interest to create more debris. So with this kind of tests, which is at a lower altitude, it takes much lesser time for the debris to remain in orbit. It will fall back onto the atmosphere and burn out very quickly. So definitely it is a major consideration for us.
So that space debris which will fall back into the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. One of the reasons is that if you want to launch anything else, that's anybody. Why? Put it simply, why should there not be too much space debris?
Because space debris, unlike any kind of object you put in airspace, they just don't fall back quickly. They tend to rotate in their own orbit for days, for years. So when you want to put up new satellites, you are essentially jeopardizing your mission by creating more and more debris. The Chinese 2007 test has shown these kind of consequences, where one of its pieces has hit a Russian satellite in orbit. So these are the kind of problems which we will have, and we want to avoid.
So you're avoiding that problem, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have the capability to hit a satellite in higher orbits.
Well, that we do not know because unless we have all the technical parameters of the exoatmospheric BMD system, we cannot say what is the altitude our system can reach. But so far, I mean, our missile systems has given a range always a bit lesser than what they could have done. So maybe this is higher. There is a capability for higher range.
The Foreign Ministry has gone on record in its frequently asked questions to say that this is not targeted at any country specifically. But if you have this capability, which is at least you're saying about to reach where it has so far, 400 kilometers or so, what are the targets that we are looking at in terms of hitting if a need arises?
Well, any country, if it wants to take, let's say, images, the pictures, and will usually put up a low Earth orbit satellite. Not just like real-time pictures, but you also have your radar satellites or electronic intelligence satellites orbiting in the low Earth orbit. So if a situation arises where it is undesirable for our adversary to know our battle formations, our war moment, so it makes it significant for us to deny that capability to the adversary, which usually in the low Earth orbit.
Reconnaissance satellites, you talk about lay people would say spy satellites, military satellites, radar satellites. Would it also involve military communication satellites
No,
that could be
communication
taken up?
satellites are in a much higher orbit. They're at 36,000 kilometers altitude. And so far, no country has proven a system, an ASAT system, which can reach and destroy a satellite in that orbit.
And why has India chosen this particular mode? Because Foreign Ministry in its brief also says there are other methods, including flyby tests or jamming.
So flyby tests are only uh, done, at least in my uh, analysis of Chinese tests. They are only done to make sure that the system is functioning properly. These are only like, and once they have good confidence on it, they are going to prove that kinetic capability so that other nations can take note of it.
Explain again. Yeah, sorry, you were talking about jamming.
Jamming and laser weapons are requires high-end technologies, which we might eventually acquire, but not at this phase.
Again, explain simply what this killer vessel is, the vehicle is, which would have probably been used in this case.
Well, a missile system usually have, or a missile will have phases. The booster phase usually kicks up the missile into air and then into space. And at the top end of it will be a spike, kind of essentially a bigger bullet, we can say in layman terms, that is going to go and hit the satellite and destroy it into pieces.
Again, since you're using the analogy of a bullet, of course, a little bigger than a bullet, when you are looking at destroying a satellite, you, apart from all the other parameters of where it is in orbit, you'd also be looking at the size. So the size of the bullet would vary with the size of the satellite that has to be knocked out.
Not necessarily. If you have a greater space situational awareness, you definitely know where the satellite is. Then it should be possible to use the kinetic energy of the kill vehicle to destroy even a bigger satellite. It all depends on the kinetic energy, not exactly on the size of the interceptor.
What reaction do you expect? We've seen in the past, of course, that's changed so far in terms of international politics. Do you expect India's technology, maybe not this particular demonstration or this particular technology, but to India to be in any manner sanctioned by the US in other fields because of this?
Well, that has been the case so far. I mean, whenever we have tested our technologies, high-end technologies, sanctions have followed immediately. But all you have to see that in 1998 there were sanctions, but immediately there were also talks, and then we actually went for a deal with the United States. That is the next steps in strategic partnership, which is the basis for our for the India-US partnership today. So, and I think that is proven during the Balakot airstrikes, right? So it is possible that we have positive diplomatic energy with the West, and maybe sanctions may not be may not be an immediate consequence, but we still need to look out for this because there are many actors in the West which deal with these demonstrations. So we have to make sure that all of them are favoring that India's position in this matter.
So, Mr. Reddy, if it happens, any form of sanctions are imposed by the West, US, what's the worst case scenario?
Well, as far as India is concerned, I think the worst situation would be we'll be losing our commercial launches, and ISRO might also have some problems attaining technologies from the West, or at least products which we buy into in our space program. And if, as you said, if it is really a worst case scenario, maybe it will affect our human spaceflight program because the France is a major partner in it. and therefore there are some consequences for it, but we have to wait and see.
The External Affairs Ministry says again that it's not targeted against any country and that India is not violating any international laws or treaties or bilateral laws or bilateral treaties in any manner. What's your take on that?
We did not technically violate any treaty because the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 did not envisage these kind of technologies coming in. They are only concerned about resisting nations from placement or demonstrating their nuclear weapons in space, but not this adaptation of missile technology or laser weapons. And since then, there was no international consensus on a new treaty, and therefore, we did not technically violate any international treaty so far.
But the spirit of space exploration.
That maybe I think the narrative has changed now as far as India is concerned due to the changing geopolitical circumstances. But I would say that still the India should take a lead in forming a new treaty which prevents nations from deploying anti-satellite weapons. This is merely a test, but not a placement of weapons in space yet.
Since you're talking about narratives, do you see any parallels between that was also called Shakti, the nuclear tests and these tests? Because India ideologically again is against nuclear weapons, but have we chosen again to make this technology demonstration even if you're ideologically against weapons in space? Because there is a club that is capable of doing that and India should be on it.
See, that is the major point coming out from the government today, that India is now a space power. Like Vajpayee has declared that India is now a nuclear state, which means that we are a nuclear power. So it is very important for the nation to demonstrate that technology and then make a declaration about our power, about our technology. And I think this is a continuum since Indira Gandhi doing it in 1974. She's also taken lead in going for space missions, such as sending our Rakesh Sharma into space. So there is a political continuum here.
Again, when you look at the Prime Minister making this as an address, how do you look at it politically? Is this large enough, significant enough for the Prime Minister just weeks before elections to make that address, or should the scientists who were involved, the DRDO, ISRO, whoever's involved, have made that announcement?
Well, generally it is a political decision. All these big technological demonstrations, nuclear weapons or space anti-satellite weapons, these are all political decisions. So it is appropriate for him to make the declaration. At the same time, he's also the center of different bodies. Like he is the recognized representative on the global stage. He's also representative of the people in the parliament from the domestic side. Therefore, all these things come together and make him the uh, like say that he is the right person to make this kind of declaration.
You talked about reactions from the West, in particular the US and France. How do you think Beijing and China will react to this?
Certainly, I'm sure they taken the message, uh, and they must be much more cautious in defending their, trying to come up with their own technologies again. But anyway, they have a lead, and I think we have to catch up to them. And I think, but at least as far as deterrence is concerned, I think by demonstrating a technology, by demonstrating a set capability, we're certainly sending a signal to the world that it is not in their interests to even think about destroying our satellites.
Thank you so much for speaking to SNI.
Thank you so much.